Hey folks, and welcome to another Broken Meeple Top 100 episode. Thank you so much for tuning into these episodes. The response rate to people putting comments down and giving positive feedback and giving their opinions as to games that they would, that they like out of the groups of 10 has been overwhelming. I've never thought that the top 100 would grow, popular enough to. It's pretty much dwarfing the response rate I had from last year. So thank you so much for that. Anyway, enough gushing. I did enough of that last episode. So yes, it's another hot evening, but, that's the summer for you, unfortunately. We're stuck in this perpetual heat in the UK right now, but it's not going to stop me getting into some more videos. So hopefully you've enjoyed the last, 40 games I've talked about in a positive light. I can talk nice about games sometimes. But this is a very sort of important episode because this is the 10 games that didn't make the top half of the list. Which 10 games came so close by a gnat's wing to just fall short of the top 50 games that I love. And that's not to say any of these are bad or lesser games. They're awesome in their own regard. A few little quick stats. We have 3 debuts on this section of the 10. For the most part, the games have been pretty steady in terms of whether they've gone up or down compared to last year, except for one. Not including Sushi Go Party, which technically is the highest riser of the entire list, but that one kind of came back onto the top 100. This is the highest rising game that was on last year's top 100, is on this section of 10. Which one do you reckon it is? See if you can guess it by the time I get to it. Not going to give you any clues when it's coming up. I'll just mention it when it does. So for now, let's get going. 60 to 51. My number 60 has dropped 5 places, so it wasn't on the top half last year. And this is a game by Ignacity, Treverdick and Portal Games. This one is a card tableau building game, kind of a sequel to a game called 51st State. This one I prefer though, not just because of the cutesy artwork, but also the different factions that you can play are differentiated. There's been expansions introducing more factions and more ways of playing. The card base is now considerably larger than it once was, and it's just a fairly nice, simple, but with some depth involved, card tableau building game. One caveat, don't play this with more than 3 players, and ideally play it with only 2. But, 3 players can work if players are quick, and it has a particularly good solo mode as well. It is this one that you can see right in the screen, just... Here we go, Imperial Settlers. I still enjoy this one. Now, I do not go with this whole deck building aspect. I literally have just taken every single card, shuffled them together, here's a deck. And yeah, that dilutes some of the decks, and some people may argue it makes some decks less powerful or more powerful, but I don't play this game often enough to do the statistics on which deck is more powerful. And I'm certainly not experienced enough with the game to decide, well, I should deck build the Egyptians like so. Done. Well, what do I know about it? I just like to throw all the cards together and have complete variety so I can have a brand new style of game every time I play it. Whether it's any of the base sets like the Barbarians, the Egyptians, or now new the yes, we've had the Aztecs, which one is it that's coming out? It might be the Amazons, but certainly all the expansion races have been really good and really enjoyable as well, and I look forward to more coming out for this game because it's an easy include. It's another faction, more choices for who you want to play, so that's always a good thing. It's straight up 45 to 90 minutes. Granted, it usually takes a little bit longer depending on the players, but if you know what you're doing, you can run through this pretty quick. The rules are not particularly complex, but it's just interesting where you are building a tableau of cards for production, for victory points, and for various other means, and each faction just plays very differently. You're drafting them from a central pool in the middle, but you've also got your unique deck of cards for your own faction. You can attack other people's factions, you can, well, depending on who they're playing, but you can raise your own, you can flip them over to get deals, so it's like perpetual income. There's a lot of cool ways you can play this and some interesting strategies to victory. So I get a kick out of this one. It remains steady. I don't think it's ever going to climb into the top half, but certainly it's not one that's going to drop off anytime soon either. So I still give this one credit. Imperial Settlers. This next game, my 59, has dropped 6 places. Again, this one just narrowly missed the top half, last year, but still love this game no matter which map I like to play for it. Well, actually, granted, I don't get as much enjoyment out of the the two original maps, you know, America and Europe, but I love all the expansion maps that they've been doing. Anything from Switzerland to India to UK to Pennsylvania to Africa to Asia to France to the Old West. You know, there's so many maps for this game, it's unreal, you know, and it doesn't look like it's going to falter anytime soon. In fact, the only map for this I don't think I've played is Nordic countries and Netherlands. I think they're the only two maps I haven't played. Apart from that, I think I own all the other maps. And I'm just going to pick one, really. I don't really care which one I draw out of here, because you know what it is. Ticket to Ride. That's the UK expansion, and which, to be fair, is actually probably this is my favourite expansion box of the lot, so this is actually quite fitting. Ticket to Ride, if you know board games, you know what Ticket to Ride is. This is hardly exactly going to go over anyone's head, and I still enjoy this. I really hate trains as a theme, but this isn't a game that I look to for its theme. It could have been cars, it could have been, well, Ticket to Ride New York used taxis, so case in point. But this could have been any theme whatsoever, so I don't even think of this as a train game. You know, train games, not a fan of them. But this is just a simple connection, you know, connecting routes kind of game, you know, with a rummy style card mechanic. Dirt simple. It's one of the staple games, probably one of my top 10 gateway games that I will pick in order to get new people into the hobby. And, you know, if I think they can handle it, they can try a different map. But otherwise, I'll just chuck out Europe, maybe even Germany. Even Pennsylvania is quite an easy gateway game as well, because it's just got collecting share certificates. Pretty straightforward. It's just great fun, whether I like it on the app or in physical form. You know, it's just a solid game. I'm even tempted. Well, actually, nah, I can probably live without getting Nordic countries and Netherlands because, well, I've got enough there already. One of my Kallax shelves is nothing but Ticket to Ride, and even then, it's had to have a box propped on top of them in order to fit them all. And that's not even all the ones I've got, because Ticket to Ride 10th Anniversary USA is in the other room. So I think I'm good for Ticket to Ride in terms of what's already released, but if they release another map pack that catches my eye, then chances are I will give it a go. That 15-minute version, it's decent, does the job, it's a quick filler Ticket to Ride. I've played it, I like it fine, but I'm not desperate to have it in my collection. I'd rather get into like the meatier Ticket to Ride maps. I mean, certainly this UK and Pennsylvania, I love playing these maps. UK especially, and it's not just because I'm from the UK, this just legitimately is a good map. I did quite like France as well, actually. That was a pretty good one. So, Ticket to Ride, you know it. What more do I need to say? It's a great game, great gateway game, 59. And number 58 has only dropped a few places, and I have to stress I made a slight error actually on this list when I said there were 3 debuts. There's actually only 2. This one came up as a debut though because the Excel spreadsheet I used named both of these games differently because I used the simple name for one section and then I put bracket 2016 edition on the previous year's list, and so it didn't tie them up, and so it thought this one was new. Now this one is constantly being in this section of the top 10, you know, it could even climb, you know, it could make a top 50 game because I'm enjoying this more and more, particularly with the new fancy edition that Fantasy Flight put out. This is one of my like go-to role selection games. It's probably one of the first modern day board games that I ever played. You know, and I played this at uni before I even started getting into board games. I was more into Magic the Gathering and Warhammer and roleplay game stuff back then. But there was just the occasional card game or the occasional board game that just really took my eye for modern day board games. And it is a classic in my opinion. Reimagined Citadels 2016 edition. That's why it kind of threw it off. I mean, I'll play the classic version, you know, still fine. You know, people have got it. I've seen it at cafes. I'll just whip out the classic version with the 8 characters. Maybe chop it up for the Dark City expansion. But I love the version I've got here because, you know, you've got a component upgrade for the crown. Like the cards are tarot size. The artwork is greatly improved. You know, the classic version has a nice style to it, but you can't argue this one looks better. At least, not always. And, you know, now you've got another set of characters. So you've got, what, like 8, well, you've got like 9, 18, 27 characters or something ridiculous now. You know, a huge amount. It gives you presets, you know, do you want a nice game, a money-making game, a really mean game? I'm still waiting to try that one. Nobody is keen enough to try the mean game, the mean preset of characters. I really want to try it because everybody's in the same boat. But yeah, I get a kick out of it. Bruno Fatuti, a designer I particularly like. In fact, how many times is he on this list? Bruno Fatuti is It says only one, but he's co-designed other games I like. So he's probably on here about 2 or 3 times, you know, in some respect. And, you know, this is a crazy role selection game. You choose a role, it has a special power, you then spend some money, build a city up. The victory points is how valuable your city is, so it's not just a case of rush to the finish, you've also got to have a decent price city as well. And it's more about that whole bluffing and deduction aspect of, right, that guy, he's definitely taking the assassin. So is he going to come after me? In which case, who does he think I'm going to play? The merchant or the warlord? Oh, I don't know. That guy's got a lot of money though. But did he take the assassin? And if he took the assassin, he knows that someone wants his money. So if I take the thief, he's probably going to kill the thief. Maybe I'll take the king. King's a good safe bet and I'll go first. Right, assassin, who are you going to kill? I'm going to kill the king. It's got a good amount of frustration at times. But I love bluffing, I love role selection, I like special powers, I mean who doesn't? And this is basically a classic game. I played the classic version back in uni as I said, you know, I loved it then, I love this version even more now. I was straight in on this because, you know, once I heard it was coming out, you know, just a nice pimped up version. I never want to play this with more than 5 players, but, you know, and always played a 7, you know, 7 cities, that is, 7 districts, sorry. And yeah, I get a kick out of it. It's possible it could climb. It could go into my top half. I'm, you know, getting more plays of it lately and I enjoy every single one. So, Citadels, another classic. My number 57 has climbed 1 whole place. Yes, 1 whole place. It's remained really steady. It's a racing game and it's from AEG and it's basically cars around a track. But the crux with this one and the cool gimmick is that you're bag building. There are bag building games like Orleans and Altiplano and a few others like that. But this one combined bag building with racing. That's not been done before. It was a cool, innovative idea, and I think it works well. I mean, granted, it's just coloured cubes. I wish it was something a bit different, but you know, you can't really do much more than cubes when you're drawing out of a bag. But the cubes represent things like your pit crews and your different engines and your transmissions and your speed and agility, that sort of thing, and your gears. And it's great that you can basically tweak your car how you like, so there's that little bit of a bag building aspect combined with the fact that you are racing around a track. And because I've got expansions to this game, I can get even more fun out of it with various number of players. Automobiles. I still really enjoy this one, but I accept it's not for everybody. Not everybody goes for this, and I certainly hate playing this with even 4 really. 2 or 3 is probably my best bet. 3 is just like an absolute sweet spot with this game. 4 is okay, but I've got to cut the laps down, never playing with 5 again. But I've also got the expansion Racing Season in here, which adds, you know, some more maps which cater for different numbers of players. They're great maps. There's more, you know, card powers, you can get sponsors, you can get player powers now. But I really like, and this is why it still remains steady, the campaign mode in this. It's a free map Grand Prix, and you essentially play free maps, but you can tailor how many laps you want each one to be. So, do you want an epic day of racing? Then have 3 long maps. But if you just want to do 3 quick ones in the game night, then you could just say have 1 lap per lap, or 1 to 2 laps per match. But the tweak here is that you get sponsors in between each match in order to give you some little power-ups and that, but you also don't empty your bag. Your bag doesn't reset. So you've had that first game of building up your car and getting going, and then for the second and third match, your bag remains as it was before. Wear cubes, engines, whatever. So the second and third game go a bit quicker, but then you also have to consider that maybe you won the first game by the skin of your teeth by destroying your car in the process, and now you've got to deal with that for the second round. It's still a solid piece of innovation. Bag building with racing. Not something you would normally see, and I respect innovation when it tops up in games. So for this one, Automobiles sitting proudly, very steady at 57. My number 56, and here we are. Yeah, this one climbed 41 places and was on last year's top 100. What game could possibly have accelerated itself so much up my list? What possible change could have happened? I wonder if any of you have guessed it yet, or looked on last year's and now are equating the numbers. But this is from AEG. It's a card game. When I first played it, it was fine. It was innovative, but it had some lacking issues, and despite liking it, it was one of those ones that I felt was just going to sort of come up and then become a turkey eventually. More cards came out for it, it slightly improved, but then, you know, it was still only reaching a certain peak. Then I got a giant box for it lately, and it introduced a new mechanic called Equinox. It allowed 2 players to take their turns simultaneously. It nearly halves the game length, and completely cuts down on downtime. It is one of the best mechanics I have seen in any deck building game ever. And this is technically not deck building, it is card building. You literally craft the cards. Yes. This giant game here, Mystic Vale. It seriously has climbed that high for me, and it is mostly due to this expansion. Granted, there was a couple before, like Leaders, which introduced the leaders, like player powers and stuff like that, which are great. But this box, you've got the totem. Oh, actually, I'll get onto those later. You know, first off, that Equinox variant. The fact that in a 4-player game, 2 people play simultaneously, and each player is drafting from a different side of the board with different cards. So you're only concerned with half of what's on the table because you know you can't touch the other half. And then once you're done, the next 2 players go simultaneously. And then those two, and so on. The game length is cut down, in a sense, but it's also mainly that even if the game length doesn't cut down that much, the downtime is severely reduced. And that is a huge boom, because 4-player games of this did used to take quite some time. You can now play this with 5 or 6 players. I'm not desperately keen to do that. I'd rather just keep it to 3 and 4. But if someone wanted to do 5 and 6, I can use that variant, and it's not that much of a burden. So it's such a great mechanic. But on top of that, I've now got a big box to store everything in, you know, and there's more expansions on the way. I've already got the recent one, Twilight Garden, that's in here now. And I know there's more to come because there's a high amount of room in here. But another great thing in this was the totems. These were powers that you gave to each player, and they were game-changing powers. They gave you victory points for meeting certain conditions, they gave you starting like icons, they gave you ways to get, you know, extra mana and extra cards outside of the normal rules. These are super powerful cards, and there isn't one in there that is deemed to be a major dud. They're all useful in their own respect, but it gives you a focus. You can now play to that card's power. It gives you something to aim for with the cards that are out there. And it also speeds the game up because now, because you have this accelerating factor to begin the game with, you get to the bigger cards quicker, which tends to give you more powerful effects, which then allows the game to finish quicker. So everything about this Conclave expansion pretty much did what it said on the tin. A bit costly because you've got to buy a huge box, and the whole preset setups, you know, I'm not desperate with those, you know, that was a sort of lacking factor. But yeah, Mystic Vale, since that Equinox variant and the totems, put them together, and I absolutely adore this game. This is not going to fall off the top 100 anytime soon. It was in danger of, but with this, nope, boom, 41 places straight up. It has outright beaten a lot of other games. I have a group of friends who love Mystic Vale. They like to play it with me, so the 4 of us can play the Equinox variant with all the expansions that I put in and just have a blast. So this was a big shock as to how high it climbed the list. It is easily, by far, the biggest riser here. In fact, come to think of it, looking at the list, ignoring Sushi Go as before, and Paperback, because that technically just returned to the list, the next biggest riser is 25 places, and then 15 places, and then 13 places, and then it's all single digits. Yeah, not a lot of games rise highly, but this one just completely skyrocketed up the list, and with good reason. If you like Mystic Vale, this Conclave expansion is one you need to get. It's that good. Dropping 3 places is another classic. In fact, this whole 10 seems to be Battle of the Classics. Yeah, there's 3 games here that are considered to be like staple classics. And remember what I said about Dominion, you know, sometimes the old ones are the best. Well, okay, this one isn't quite the best, but a load of people seem to think it's cool to rag on this game now, and I don't get it, because it's a good game. I like this game. It's, you know, granted I won't play just the base set all the time. I like to play it with one expansion sort of thrown in to vary things up, but you've got different scenarios. I've had scenario packs for this, you know, that were pretty decent. And there's just something about it. No game has done trading with other players as well as this. Find one. You know, proper trading, literally discussions with each other saying, I'll trade you this resource for this resource in a gateway level game. There are some trading aspects in really heavy games, but they're complex games. This is a simple gateway game that I can teach to mostly anyone. Not everyone has got this on their first try, but it's a solid game. And I don't know why people give this one a hard time. Yes, it's an older game. I don't care. Catan. Still, I like Catan. And granted, this is the expansion I will pretty much solely play it with. Some of the stuff in Traders is fine. Cities of the Knights is okay, but it takes it to a level I'm not a huge fan of. The, what's it called? The Explorers and Pirates? Yeah, that's alright. You know, that's fine. I'll take it or leave. But all I need is Catan with Seafarers. And possibly the Fisherman expansion and the Harbour thing from Traders and Barbarians. But you know, the fog islands, the 4 islands, all the different scenarios about being on multiple islands. It now makes wool that much more useful because now you have to build ships with that, but you don't have to go sailing. You could just happily, you know, stay on one island depending on the scenario. If you play games, you know what Catan is. There's not much more I need to say about it. I still enjoy it. It's not likely to hit the top half of the list, but I still get a kick out of just occasionally breaking out Catan. The only thing that does my head in, and it really does my head in, is the borders in this were clearly not designed properly. The fact that you are supposed to simply flip over the border tiles that you had in the base set and then add a few extra on mean that they don't quite fit together as jigsaw pieces properly, and I hate that. I really could use some weird pimped up version of this or something that allows me to do those borders properly. I mean, to be fair, give me a 3D tile Catan, I'd be very happy. And probably very broke. But so, yeah, I'll cross my judgment on that one. So yeah, still like it. 3 classics on this top 10, on this section of a top 100, get it right. Catan, I still like it. My number 54 is a proper debut to this list, so, you know, sorry for the mistake. The first of 2, and this one is a sequel to my Sid Meier's Civilization game that I mentioned earlier on this top 100. This one I prefer more mainly because it's a lot shorter, it's a lot easier to get to the table. There's still a fair amount of rules involved, but it's mainly this great mechanic of having 5 cards that dictate your technologies and having to maneuver them across this row, you know, from 1 to 5, and depending where it is when you activate it, it dictates how powerful it is. It's a cool twist on the mechanic, but you still have that slightly abstracted feel of going out onto the map, finding new places, battling other players occasionally, and, you know, being efficient with your civilization. And yeah, well, you know what it is. Civilization A New Dawn. Yes, it's a bit more abstracted for a Civilization game, but you kind of have to in order to get it into a sort of 2-hour playing time, which it is possible to play this one. You don't get many Civilization games that easily work within a 2-hour time limit. It can go a bit longer for your first learning game, I admit, but once you're used to it, it flows quite nicely. It's, you know, nice colourful artwork, you know, it's pretty solid on the table, but I really like that whole having the technology cards and saying, right, well, I'm going to use this one now, that shifts to the back, pushes these ones up. I need to get more military, but that card's not powerful yet. Hang on, maybe if I use research, there you go, I'll get another tech. Yay, now it's more powerful, now I'll use it. The timing and manipulation of that row just sings to me with this game. As well as, of course, the usual tropes of any Civilization building game of, you know, building up your units, building up your culture, and setting off across a map. Yes, I know, it's a bit more abstracted than that, but I still get a kick out of it. It's, well, not super streamlined, but there's just something about being able to play a Civilization game in a shorter play time than most other Civilization games that does sing to me. You know, I don't have to sacrifice my entire game night to play this one. It will take up maybe half a game night, and then I can play something else. Whereas most other Civilization games, you're kind of there for the entire night if you want to get it done. So, it's a new day. Oh, I said it. No! Oh, I said on the last 10 that I wasn't going to say the phrase new debut, and I just said it then. Ah, for crying out loud. I will start making that properly. He knows, he's listening, I bet. He's laughing right now. So, yeah, Civilization, still love it. A debut on this list, the first of 2. So what other one made it? My number 53 was in the top half. It's dropped 6 places, so it's just missed it this time. It's a co-op game. It's a fairly oldish co-op game. It's been out for a fair while by Antoine Balzer, you know, one of my favorite designers, and it's one of the hardest co-op games you can find. I think there are harder, but this one does like to punish you pretty severely. And yet it gives you difficulty levels to make it even higher. You know, was initiation not hard enough for you? How about hell? Hell? I want to play a game! Seriously, it's so bad that when you put it on those higher difficulties, it pretty much like is taking, you know, I mean, I'll better get it for you actually so you know what I'm talking about in context. It is, just get it out, got to shift that chair a bit, there we go. Ghost Stories. Still really enjoy this one. A great 4-player co-op game. You know, I can play this solo and with less, but with 4 players, this one really sings, with each of you controlling a monk and trying to fight back spirits. Looks beautiful. The White Moon expansion really upped this as well. But the difficulty in this game is kind of like, ooh, this is a nice little box. Yeah, let me just see what it is in there. And then suddenly a giant hand comes out and it's, ow, ow, ow. It punishes you and slaps you around the second you open the box before you even try to get into the game. It's that hard. But it's great entertainment. You've got the different map tiles that you can trigger special abilities on. You've got the cards for the various ghosts that all do different things. The artwork is beautiful in this game. It's got that great kind of almost anime style, you know, monk Eastern type look. It's a fairly short game. I mean, you can wrap this up in about an hour. You know, it's probably the 4th classic on this list in a sense. Yeah, it's a bit more recent than obviously Catan and Citadels and that, but this one was talked about many years ago and many people don't really speak of it anymore. But I still hang on to it. I still think it's solid. Don't really care about getting the Black Secret expansion. The White Moon is good enough for me, but even the base set. Base set is good to whip out with 4 players, you know, you're rolling dice. You can only alpha game this to such an extent if you're with those sort of players. It's hard as nails, but it's tense, and the build-up when you get nearer and nearer to the finish is you think, come on, we can almost do this, and then the climax of either failure or success, you know, it causes some great epic moments. So I still love it. It's not quite top 50 material anymore, but it's still top 100 material. Ghost Stories. My 52 is the next debut on this list, and it's one that should have made last year's list. It only didn't because I got the game and hadn't played it yet, so it missed the cutoff. But the second I played it, yeah, I knew this was making this list. How high? I didn't know, but I'm actually quite surprised it got this high. You know, 52 for what is a fairly dry Euro game. But mechanically it's just really sound. It's hard to find in English. You sometimes have to find a German copy. I think mine's English, so it should be right. Or is it English or German? No. Oh no, it's a German version, but I've got English rules in it. But it's mostly language independent, so it's not a big deal. This one has you using a rondel mechanic to buy bricks in order to build, you know, various city tiles. It is the palaces of Carrera. And a lot of you probably haven't even heard of this game, but some of you that do, you know, they'll understand how cool this game is. A cool little pricing wheel shows you what how much money you got to pay for different colored bricks. You have to use those bricks in order to build different buildings in various cities. But the cool thing with this, as well as that pricing wheel in general, is that you change up the scoring tiles. So ways that you score points are different. Like, you know, one game you might need to get really big cities. And, you know, another one you just need all of a particular type. And they chop and change, they vary. But on top of this, you choose when you score. And I don't know many other games of any that do this, where you're the one who chooses when you score. Not like it's after a certain number of turns, not after like, oh, it's just the end of the game, although you do score at the end of the game a little bit in this as well. It's more that you have these pawn pieces and you cash one in when you want to score something. And you choose what you're going to score. So I'm going to score, you know, the cities. I'm going to score the various like building types and such and such. And it's all about timing, because you've got to think, that city can only be scored once and my opponent is gunning up for it. Is he going to score it early to stop me, even if it doesn't give him many points, or do I have time to build it up a little bit more so I can get the most benefit out of it? It's a really cool system, and like I say, language independent, so I can deal with it even though it's in German. The advanced mode in this is kind of mandatory. You know, the basic mode is purely there to learn the rules, and that's it. After that, throw the expanded stuff in, have the variable scoring tiles that you can chop and change every game, have the high level buildings, the ability to overlap buildings. You know, there's a lot more in that advanced variant that you really want to have in this game. But it's not a difficult game. It's about 60 minutes for 2 players, about 90 for 3 or 4. It doesn't take very long, doesn't take much to teach, but it's got a surprising amount of depth. This is one of those hidden gems that the only way I found out about it was an old Dice Tower video. I think it was a Miami Dice video ages ago where it caught my interest. And, you know, the designer of this, Wolfgang Kramer, has done a lot of cool games. So, you know, the designer caught my eye as well, and there was just something about it. And then I had to try and find a copy, which was difficult to say the least, but I managed to get this one quite cheap because it was in German. And I don't regret it. 52. A debut on this list, and deservedly so. Could it make the top 50? We'll see. Maybe next year. But for now, 52, still a solid entry. And my 51 has climbed 8 places. I'm kind of surprised it's climbed that much, but you know, I don't think this will be a top 50 game, but my god, it's fighting hard trying to get into this position. I like negotiation games, you know, I love the whole bluffing and social deduction and just general interaction with other players, trying to convince them that your way is better, even when you secretly know it isn't. Now, most negotiation games are relatively quick, and we'll get onto maybe 1 or 2 of them later in the top 100, but for a game that takes nigh on 3 hours to play, whoo, that's a lot of negotiation. But it's an underrated game in my opinion. It's set in the Netrunner universe, which is a vibrant, colourful, interesting cyberpunky style universe, but 3 hours long it can take. You want to play this with 5 or still 6 players, and it's going to take a while. There's going to be a lot of bluffing, there's going to be a lot of backstabbery, there's going to be a lot of cooperation, there's going to be a lot of deal breaking and everything. But my god, I do get a kick when well, literally in some cases, depending on the other players, but I get a kick out of playing New Angeles. It was on my top 10 underrated games because this one sort of came and went and not everybody was a fan of it, which, granted, I can understand why. It's a 3-hour negotiation game. This is not going to appeal to everybody, but for someone like me, it pretty much sings. And even though I say 3 hours and I don't normally like long games, this doesn't feel long. You know, your brain will hurt by the end of it because you've done lots of negotiation. But I never sit there going, come on, I want to start next game, No, I'm getting involved. There's pretty much no downtime because you are constantly engaged with all the deals. You're either involved in making a deal or making a counter offer or deciding which one of them you're going to side with, or even you're just interested in how the other players are, you know, making their deals because you're trying to figure out who your rival is. You know, who is it that I know who I'm trying to beat, but who's trying to beat me? And is he trying to get higher than that corporation? And on top of this, you've got the Federalist, I think they're called, which is like the traitor mechanic. So you're trying to figure out who's that traitor, who in this group wants the city to tank. You know, and each of you has got a different way of helping the city, whether it's by curing the illnesses, restoring power, getting rid of yobs, you know, getting rid of mobs and that, you know, security force, or, you know, controlling the media. Each one of you is key to keeping the city alive at the end of the game. One of you doesn't want it to happen though. Who's that player? And my god, I love playing the Federalist in this. It is so much fun. But it does overwhelm some people who are new. So I really enjoy negotiation games in general. To play one for 3 hours is obviously going to sing to me. But I've had great moments in this with deal breaking and, you know, classic reveals. But for a game that lasts nigh on 3 hours, to not feel like it plays for 3 hours is something that really sings well to me. And in fact, we will get on to another one of those in a couple of episodes time, which has a similar thing of can take a while, but doesn't feel like it takes a while. So, New Angeles, wrapping up this section of the top 10 at 51, just missing the top half of my list. So, that's it for another 10. We got 50 more games to go. Whew. It's getting exhausting doing this, but hopefully you guys will enjoy the rest of these as much as I'm enjoying recording them. So, what have we got next episode? 3 debuts, mostly drops. You know, 1 riser, but yeah, there's some really cool games on this next set of 10, and they're only going to get better. Well, at least from my perspective. Some of you might disagree, and I'd like to hear from you. Do you like the 10 games on this list? Do you think they should be higher, lower, non-existent? Let me know in the comments. Just keep supplying your feedback as you have been doing. I really appreciate it. So for now, I'll see you on the next episode of the Broken Meeple, and remember, whatever game you love or hate on this Top 100, it's still only a game. See you next time, and take care.